Chatting Shit with Ostique, the podcast series where we chat about shit with inspirational people from all walks of life. Today, we are joined by the wonderful and inspiring Sarah Wood. We hope you enjoy this conversation. Sarah, welcome to Chatting Shit with Ostique. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thanks. No, it's great to talk to you.
So today's topic is all about menopause with a stoma. And I was saying to you just before we press record, it's something I've personally never heard spoken about, and it feels like such an important topic for at least half of the population with a stoma. So raising awareness of it seems really important. So thanks for being here today to do that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And yeah, no, I hadn't connected it either until someone mentioned it when I was in hospital recently. So I thought, why didn't I even think of that before? But, you know, I suppose you're too busy dealing with the day-to-day things. Yeah.
Of course, yeah. You can't be expected to piece together all the dots of everything that could possibly be going on.
No, absolutely.
So before we kind of get into everything, would you mind just introducing yourself and kind of briefly touching upon your journey with Crohn's?
Yeah, quite. That's fine. So, sorry, I'm just going to my laptop down because it's a strange noise. That's better anyway. Okay.
Yeah.
So I was diagnosed with Crohn's when I was 17. I was sort of in sick form. Nobody really knew what was going on. Everyone thought it was an eating disorder, including my sister. I think the diagnosis came quite quickly because my GP knew he had a connection with a good gastro team, which was good. So everything was fine for a few years. I went off to college. It wasn't really till sort of the end of my college time that I started becoming really unwell. And in my early 20s, it was really unmanageable, quite difficult, a real struggle. I don't know how I kept working really, but I did. Because I was living away from home in Gloucestershire, it was way back in the 90s, back in the dark ages of Crohn's. And although, and I can remember going to endless hospital appointments where, I think one consultant once said to me, I bet you're just fed up of being ill. And I was thinking, well, yeah, but, thanks. Because, you're the one supposed to be helping me get over it. But so I sort of pushed really to go to a London hospital. And once I saw someone in a London hospital, I was went prepared to really do anything they told me. And he said, you know what I'm going to say, unless you do this. And it was, you've got to have the operation to have a stoma bag, that you won't get better. If we found a cure tomorrow, it's too late for you, sort of thing. And he did actually use those words. So, that's what happened. And things moved from there. I went into a big London hospital and it was amazing, the difference in understanding and care. And I never really looked back. And I can actually remember waking up literally from the operation thinking that is it, it's over. Which was, it's a big thing. It was a big thing for my family. But, I think it was, it absolutely did change my life. But it took a long time to get to that point.
I want to talk about the surgery and how your life changed after that. But I wonder if we could just dive a little bit into what you were saying about life being quite unmanageable when you were really kind of at the height of the illness and you carried on working even though you don't know how. What kind of symptoms were you experiencing? What was day-to-day life before the surgery?
Yeah, so day-to-day life was like, I was in a lot of sort of pain, stomach cramps all the time. But the worst thing was, I think I had a lot of fistulating Crohn's in my bottom, really. And it was endless. It was just, I was on the loo all the time. And, I was a teacher of a class of kids with special needs. It was, an interesting situation. I used to have to sit on a donut, really. I had one of those funny sponge donuts that I used to literally carry around with me. And, I can remember, and one of the little ones in my class, he had a responsibility for carrying it around for me because I literally couldn't sit down without it. And one of them thought it'd be really funny to hide it one day. And I remember the anxiety of that was like really bad. I was like, oh, who's met? And it was fine. But, everyone in the school knew me as the teacher who sat on the donut. And it was like, it caused endless conversations. But, it was awful. And it was just like muck coming out of your bum the whole time. And, I suppose it would, I don't know. I just suppose I just learned to manage it. you know, the sort of, I think I used to wear about 3 pairs of pants, loads of sanitary protect, you know, all of
Mm.
that stuff, because literally I had very little control over going to the
Yeah.
toilet as well.
In terms of the surgery then, when you had your stoma surgery, how old were you? Were you in your 20s at that time?
26, yeah, 26.
And then you said it was quite transformative. How
Yeah.
did kind of life change once you had your stoma?
Well, literally, I remember thinking, apart from the fact, obviously, it was a huge operation and you've got all the complications of that going on with all being, you know, cut open and all the rest of it. And, you know,
Mm.
but, you know, you sort of know that's like for a limited period only, that's going to be a surface thing. But yeah, it was just, I think where, you know, you're eating stuff and it's not getting through to you, is it? It's doing you no good. I did used to eat quite a lot when I was really unwell, even though it would just go straight through me. I was obviously quite iron deficient and all of that. But it just, you know, I found that I was quite able to eat things, and it was, you know, I wasn't in pain all the time. And yeah, I just wanted to do more because I wasn't worrying about thinking I need to find a route round town, knowing where all the nice loos were. So I could, you know, I had all pit stops lined up, but I just didn't need to sort of think about that as much, really. I mean, it's a different way, isn't it? Like, you know, when I first saw the stoma team at the hospital where I had my operation, they went through loads of stuff and sent me it. But I can remember being at home, having everything sent to me with all the appliances and things, and looking at it and thinking, "Oh no, this is really happening, isn't it?" But it, you know, once it had happened, it never really sort of, you know, I suppose you know, I just managed it really. I got on with it. Um, and you know, at the time, all the nursing teams were sort of saying, "Oh, have you told all your friends who are coming to visit you while you're here?" And I said, "Yeah, of course I am," because it would be a little bit odd. But that said, in terms of the wider community, you know, it's not something I shared, you know, with everyone all the time. And I think, you know, in terms of that, I've owned it a bit more recently because of what's happened since, really. But yeah, I suppose, you know, things have moved on. I think everyone's a lot more
Yeah.
aware. Mm.
I think that's a really interesting thing to touch upon in terms of kind of sharing it with friends and family, what you felt comfortable to talk about. And I think maybe more of a kind of underlying question I'd have about that is the impact that I guess having Crohn's firstly and then having the stoma surgery had on your mental health over the years. Do you think that impacted that in any way?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Because it's always in your mind, and it's always a thing with relationships and everything. It's always a
Mm.
thing, you know, you're gonna, but I suppose it's like any part of anyone, really, if you think about it. It's just that that's your thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, but it, you know, it's a big thing. And I do, yeah, I do think it impacted on my mental health. But in some respects, once I sort of realised I was you know, I was much better and I could do so much more stuff. I sort of thought, well, you know, if there's things I want to do, I'm going to be able to
Mm.
do them. Um, Rather than it being like that's going to stop me. I know, you know, my mum, she was always worried about it, but she, you know, I just sort of soldiered on really and said, "Oh, you know, it's not a thing. I'm getting on with it, Mum. That's it." You know what I mean? But yeah, I
Yeah.
know her particularly. She did worry about it, but yeah, I tried not to let that stop me.
Isn't she worried about how it might impact your life?
Yeah, absolutely, on relationships and everything. I mean,
Mm.
you know, um, once I got married and we decided to start a family, I remember sort of saying that to the doctor before I got married. You know, I really want to start a family. I think I was 32 or something, and he said, "Oh well, yeah, just go for it." And you know, if it turns out that you're not becoming pregnant, we can look at it. The scarring on your bowel might have scarred your tubes, and it won't be, you know, it's not going to be possible, perhaps. So, but it was. I fell pregnant really quickly with my first daughter, and you know, just went from there really. And I had 3 children, and I never really thought about having a bag as a thing. After, you know, once I was newly pregnant with Betty, I started to panic and think, oh my God, what happens if I become really ill again? That's going to be difficult, isn't it? What a stupid idea. Who thought this was a good idea, you know? But it was, you know, once I calmed down, it was okay. I just, you know, but once you've had one child, it's a slippery slope in some respects, because you think, oh, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that. But also, you say you're so busy, aren't you? You know, I suppose. But yeah, it was, you know, interesting. And it was something I could obviously never hide from my children. They always knew what was going on. It was when Betty was a toddler. I can remember going into the bedroom one day and she'd got all my stuff out. She was wandering around with a bag stuck on her tummy, just pretending to be me.
Oh,
So yeah, you know, it's just, and I just said, "Oh, what are you doing?" I just thought it was really funny, but I thought it's not surprising, is it? Because that's how, you know,
they
little
copy
ones
everything they
learn.
see.
Exactly, exactly. And it's, yeah, it's never really, you know. But yeah,
There's so many things about children and pregnancy and everything I'd love to unpack. I think
I
to
know.
start with, how did having a stoma impact any of your three pregnancies in any way, or indeed your births as
The
well?
births, yes, not the. I wouldn't say the pregnancy, but then again, I don't know any different. No one said. The only thing was with my first pregnancy, all they kept saying was, "Your baby's too small. You're too small. You're too small." And I said, "Isn't there probably more room in me than others because of I've only got a
Yeah.
small bowel?" And they were like, "Oh no, it's you're measuring small. You're making." And so I had multiple scans, but she was a fair size, £7.6. You know. It was, and I think I was quite small carrying her, but then
Yeah.
I wasn't a very big person, as it were. So, but the other two were similar sizes. The birth, though, Betty's birth was a. I kept saying all the way through, you know, I've got this huge scarring up my bottom. That is, you know, when you've got a scar like that, it's not very elastic, is it?
No.
And they kept saying, "Oh no, no, it'd be fine, it'd be fine." You know, I was, you know,
As
what?
in they encouraged you to have a natural birth?
I did have a natural birth. And it
Wow.
was, but it was a real trauma because literally and I was really stressed about it because of my job at the time. I worked in an assessment centre for little ones with SEN, and a lot of the families had had birth trauma which had caused the problem with their child, um starvation of oxygen, or you know, all those things. So you know, I knew what the, you know, what the outcome could possibly be. um and we got hot. I think it took ages to, apart from the fact she was very late, so that was sort of stressful, obviously, going 11 days over.
Mm.
um and then we were in the labour ward, and I think I got to sort of 8 or 9 centimetres, and they kept saying, "Nothing's happening, nothing's happening, you're not, you know, it's not." And I said, "Well, maybe there's no, you know, maybe there's no more elastic,
You've got
there's
no
no,
more give. Yeah.
exactly." So then, you know, there's a drip of a drug you can have that helps that. And then they were like, so that started, and it was seemed to be going on forever. And then I can remember a midwife came in and said, "That's it, I'm getting the consultant. This baby's going into distress. We need to get them out." And so in came the consultant, and she said, "Well," she said, "literally, you've got such a big scar." And it was like I was lying there thinking, I can't believe we've got to this point, and someone's saying exactly what I've been saying for 9 months. And she went, "There's such a big scar. I'm really going to have to cut you to get the baby out." And I said, "Yeah, that's fine, but I have been saying it for, because what else are we going to do now?" They
No.
weren't looking at thinking of anything else at that point, although I suppose they could have been. But so that's what they did, and it was a forceps delivery. And I can remember just, I literally, I think I know I did. I went into shock, and it's fortunate because my husband is really very resilient in these situations. He literally was like, "Yeah, it's fine." And I remember, first of all, I remember thinking quite bizarrely, "Blimey, there really was a baby in there," because I just hadn't. I knew there was, but I think all the time I was just thinking, "Is this really happening?" Do you know what I mean? Anyway,
Mm.
quite strangely. So, yeah, they sort of got Betty out, and she was perfectly fine. But I was like really shocked. I thought, I can't believe it. Oh my god, what happens if something, and all? And I just was literally, I can remember sort of lying. I was lying there, and the next thing I knew, there was millions of people there pumping me full of antibiotics and things because they were worried about. I don't remember passing out or anything, but I think I'd gone into, like, it was just obviously shock. But
Mm.
she was perfectly fine. She had a little scratch on her face, which did scar up a bit, but I think it was only thanks to this consultant who literally, because I had to
Got her
put me up
straight
in
out.
forceps, literally, she had her foot on the end of the bed, dragging out poor
Oh, God.
Betty as a baby, bless her. So yeah, but all is well. But literally after that, I was really so exhausted because the labour seemed to go on forever,
Yeah.
and then because of the cut and the amount of yet more scarring, and it felt for absolutely months. And I remember it was things weren't right, so I was I can remember going back when I had my second baby. Amazingly, to see my Crohn's consultant, the surgeon, and he just went, "Well, you can't do that again." He said, "You're going to have a cesarean." But he was the one who persuaded the teams where I live that that's what had to happen, and that and that was so much easier to deal with. I felt.
Why do you think that they didn't offer you a seat? So now I've spoken to quite a lot of women recently who have been pregnant with their stomas, and almost all of them were told pretty early on that they were going to need to have a C-section. I'm wondering why that wasn't offered to you and whether it was a lack of knowledge and understanding about IBD, stomas, etc.
Well, I'm sure they just didn't hook up with the other teams at all. That
Yeah.
wasn't even thought of because I kept saying, no, no, it's fine. They do it all the time. Part of it is, I think, I don't know, I think it may be sort of in terms of teens, some are more forward thinking than others, more into, aren't they? Let's talk it through with you. What do you think? Let's get your
Mm,
views. And I think that is much a more normal way of moving forward now. Whereas at the time, perhaps it wasn't. And also, no one even thought it would be a thing, even though I kept saying it. But I also think it could have been the culture within that department at the time, is all I'm going
yeah,
to say on that point.
fair enough.
Obviously, you meet other mums who have similar babies the same age in your local area. So, yeah, that's all.
Yeah.
But, it was always well. And then, I had subsequently 2 other cesareans, and then they kept saying, you need to really stop now. Yeah, you need to. Apart from the fact that every time I did it, it's the birth bit did always stress me out, cesarean or otherwise.
Yeah.
But it was luckily fine. So yeah, maybe I pushed it a bit
God.
much, but we're all still here. Yeah,
Let's let's talk about the menopause if we can.
yeah, yeah.
Um, what age did menopause kind of start to begin for you, and how did it impact your life and subsequently your stoma?
Probably, I would say maybe just before I was 50, so I'm 55. I think it must have been around then when in my just after my third baby, so that was sort of, I think I was just 40. Yeah, Evie was about 2. I started getting like terrible and like period, terrible flooding, everything. And that was then
Mm.
subsequently, I started thinking it was really affecting me mentally, actually. I thought I was going a bit nuts. I was always tired and I was just always really emotional. But when they looked into that, they said, they first of all thought that was the menopause, but it wasn't. I've got an underactive thyroid. So I've got that. And yeah, but I think the menopause sort of started just before I was 50, really. It was sort of like general slowing down of everything, isn't it?
Mm.
But in terms of my stoma, I didn't really think it was a thing until probably into the lockdown, apart from the sort of general things that would normally happen. But I think with the change in shape of your body, my stoma started really retracting inwards, where before it had been quite like a proper little spout, really.
Mm.
Um, and I was thinking, oh my god, where's that gone? It's just like, and I was thinking, there's got to be something wrong here. There's got to be something wrong. But then it would suddenly just pop out, and it was all fine. But obviously, then it sort of impacts on the type of appliance you're using, because I had a really flat bag, and so then once it's retracting right inwards, that's not going to work for you very
Yeah.
well. So then I started getting leaks. So I did go and see the team, and they said, "Oh, they were like, right, you can try other things, blah blah." But as we went forward, it was like the shape of my tummy had completely changed. So on one side, it completely dipped inwards, and then the other side it was sort of popped out, so it was really difficult to find something that would fit properly.
Yeah.
They thought because my tummy, and it was just like a little bulge, really, it's not anything massive, but it just, I think in general terms, the shape had changed over time. and they said, "Oh, I think you might have a hernia as well on top of all of this." So I think that was the thing. But subsequently, this went on for a long time. We were trying to work out how we got different bags to fit. Nothing ever really worked. I was trying to sort of boost up one side with loads of paste, and then and because of all the leakage, there was like loads of issues with my skin.
Yeah.
And then once your skin becomes inflamed, it's really hard to get anything to stay in place anyway.
Mm.
And all the different things I was trying were just all different variations on like a sort of, is it convex bag that has the sort of extra bulgy bit? It is that, isn't it?
Yes.
So I was trying lots of different things, and then I got a lot of pressure sores, which was really sore, and that was quite scary because some of them were so big, and it was really hard to get them to heal up. So that was really difficult as well, and that it was really quite painful. You could hardly move around much with it, and they sort of, in theory, well, as it sort we moved on with it, I saw loads of different nurses, tried loads of different things, and in the end, a lady came round who was hugely experienced. They found someone on the team, and she just said, "Oh, I think you need to have some surgery. I'm going to recommend that you have surgery to." She said to reform the stoma, but when I saw the surgeon, he said, "Well, we could reform it, but because of the shape, it will probably go back to how it is." He said the
Right.
best thing to do is to move it to the other side of your tummy. So I said, right, okay then, thinking, "Ugh." But unfortunately, the early conversations with this surgeon, I was like, "Oh, I'm not sure." I was just really not confident.
Yeah.
So, but as time went on, I just thought it's the only thing really that's something has to change, and this is probably the only way forward. So, but he was really good in the fact he said, but before we decide, we need to check that one, there's no active Crohn's, because it could be that it's become active again. I didn't feel unwell at all, but it could be that, except for the fact that mentally it was very draining, thinking I don't want to leave the front door because of everything really. So he did that, and they also said, "Oh, you might have developed an allergy to some of the adhesives in your bags, so you need to go." And I went and I had like an allergy grid thing on my back to
Mm.
test, which was, and I just kept saying, "Well, what are you going to do if there is an allergy? I can't not wear it, you
Yeah.
know."
What are the
So there
alternatives?
wasn't really an answer to that, but I thought, let's just go through this thing, which it turned out, thankfully, there wasn't an allergy. And the original dermatologist did give me some cream and sort of say if you can air it for a couple of hours, which I did used to do. If things got really bad, I did used to just take everything off and sit, which was really not pleasant for anyone else
No.
around me. But you know what I mean? I just thought I have to do this, and it would help the skin heal up a bit. But yeah, it was a really difficult time, to say the least, and it went on for a long time. I waited nearly 2 years for this operation,
Oh.
so which happened in January. But it was a long and really stressful time, and but you know, it was hard going. But again, I kept working. Everyone in my team's really sympathetic. My boss has been amazing. Yeah, but fortunately, luckily in an agenda where I can work from home, which I think if it wasn't the case, that wouldn't have been,
Mm.
it wouldn't have been particularly doable. So there was a lot of flexibility around that. So yeah, so I had that surgery in January.
And the surgery was to move your stoma to the other side of your
Yes, yeah,
stomach,
yeah.
and has that solved the problem?
Pretty much. It's so far so good. I would say I don't think it's 100% in terms of, because the stoma seems to, and I don't know whether it's because there's only a certain amount of bowel you've got left, isn't there? So it's quite, when it was first done, it was quite, and I think as it sort of healed and become smaller, I'm still sort of, and I think it's just partly getting used to it being on the other side and in a different position and everything else that you're getting used to. So it's sort of as normal to me, but it's just sort of readjusting that. But it's so much better in every way. but there was a lot of, I found it, I sort of realised how much I'd been just sort of soldiering on and thinking I'm just going to do this, because immediately, you know, your whole mental perspective changes. And I realised, you know, when I'm trying to do other things, I'm not always thinking about something else. Do you know what I mean? I can be 100% focused on, you know, either work or the other things I need to be doing, which is good. Which is, yeah,
Yeah.
it's made a lot of difference in that respect. You know, even with the recovery, I would say. But I'm still trying to find the right thing that's going to work properly. I think because of the size of it, it's very small. So, but then if I have a small bag and the sort of the plate isn't big enough, I tend to get a leak because of the pressure when it works.
Yeah.
So, and it's also mentally, when I can feel it working, I'm thinking, oh my God, is that going to leak? But it doesn't generally, you know, there's always going to be a little bit of that, I think. But in
Yeah.
general terms, it's really, yeah, absolutely much better. And they've done it so brilliantly. And I was really worried because he kept saying, right, it may not work 100%. It may, and I thought, I know I have to be prepared for that, but I kept thinking, I've never heard of someone having to have this done before. So then I sort of, you know, you go on like the social platforms now, which is great because you can connect with the community, can't you? And
Yeah.
other people who sort of said, oh yes, everyone who'd fed back said, yes, I've had it done. It's been amazing since that's happened. So I was sort of slightly concerned, but when the actual operation happened, I was much calmer than I thought I would be. And literally, when I woke up, they went, yes, they've moved your stoma to the other side. It's fine, sort of thing. And that was it. Off we went
Big
from there.
sigh of
Yeah,
relief.
exactly. Off we went from there. And I just thought, well, hopefully this will be it now.
So who along this kind of, I guess, 2-year process between when you started getting all of these kind of issues and when you managed to have your surgery, who identified that it was linked to the menopause
Well, it
to you?
wasn't till literally after my surgery, because after my surgery, when the surgeon came round to see me in the evening after my surgery, God bless him, he had such a long day. It was like 7 o'clock, and they had me in there before at 9:15. You know, when you
Oh,
think,
wow.
I'm going to be waiting here till 12 o'clock probably, because there'll be emergencies and there'll be this. But literally, I remember I was sitting on the table with the anaesthetist at 9:15 thinking, wow, here we go. You know what I mean? But he had set sort of 7:30 in the evening, and he rang my husband to say, yeah, it's fine, 12 o'clock, blah, blah, back on the ward in the afternoon. And he came round about 7:30 and said, oh, yes, it's all went really well, blah, blah, fine, hope you're okay. You know, I thought it was really good follow up, actually. But he said, do you know you didn't have a hernia, Sarah? It was just fat. I know. I went, oh, thanks.
Great.
Thanks for that. It's just fat. And I've a bit taken him to task over it and said, you really need to improve your bedside manner, because I don't think anyone wants to hear that. It's just fat like this. But the next day, the physio came around and she said, yes, but because of the menopause, fat deposits in a woman's body will change. And that is an area, the middle of your body is where quite a lot of it goes. And that's the thing. And she said, that's probably what it was. And she said it's all to do with that, and you should, and I spent literally over the 2 years, I was thinking, oh, if I lose a bit of weight, will that help? If I do this, if I exercise, because I was really worried, because through the lockdown
Yeah.
I started an exercise regime. Every morning I used to get up, and it was nothing high impact or anything, because I've never been that great at exercising regularly, really. But I sort of thought, oh, every morning I was doing that. And I said to them, have I damaged myself? Because I then started reading about you should wear like hernia support underwear and belts when you're exercising. I've never done any of that. So I sort of said this to the physio, and she said, no, 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 there's nothing to say that's,
Done anything. Yeah.
no. But I sort of, over the 2 years, you think of anything you can that you think might be helpful, but
Of
no.
course.
So, but she just said it could be to do with that, and it probably is. But then again, it had been there for a very long time, nearly 30 years. So,
Gonna change in that time.
yeah, yeah, of course. Everyone is going to change. 3 pregnancies, all the rest of it, I suppose that, it's not without, yes, people might say it's lucky it's lasted that long. I don't know. I don't even know what the sort of what's the expectation really is, what the thoughts are around that. I mean, what I do know is now, because my eldest daughter was diagnosed with Crohn's when she was 17, that they seem to suggest doing like stomas sort of for a short period of time and then reverse them. I know a few people have had that done, but yeah, I you know when I had it done, it was literally a job lot, everything out. The surgeon just said to me, he said, you can do it in stages and we can remove that, then remove all your bum and everything. But he said, in practice, he said, what I know is the disease will come back and you'll be back. And I just thought, oh, let's just do this.
Yeah.
Done and I'll
Rather
get
than
better.
doing
Yeah,
multiple back-to-back
exactly. Yeah,
surgeries.
because then I thought, much as because he said we could then reverse it, but then it will probably go back. And I thought at the time, literally the drugs I was on for Crohn's, it was steroids, or there was one other one that used to send me a bit mad, but that was it. It wasn't like now. There wasn't the range of
Yeah.
different treatments that you can have in a different way, which is brilliant.
You mentioned that this time around, when you were kind of researching or looking for people to speak to about swapping your stoma to the other side, that there's all these people on social media that you can connect with now and
Yeah,
how kind of different that is. How you've had obviously your stoma for kind of 30 years now. How would you say the conversation about stomas has changed in the time period that you've had yours? Has it improved or are there
massively.
things that can
Yeah.
still be better?
I think definitely. I think we've got a way to go, to put it mildly, but I think it's so much. It's just so much easier to connect with the community for various reasons. Because obviously, it's so much easier to connect in general terms, isn't it, with
Yeah.
anyone because of over the platforms. But and I probably came to it really late. I just think in really, I had a once I was well with my stoma, I was only going back to the hospital for annual checkups, and that was fine. But then it was not long after I'd Evie, my third daughter, in 20, I don't know, say 20 2009. I went up and I was sort of going to my general sort of checkup, and they just said, right, we'll sign you off, because you're fine. It's good to see you, but you don't need, if you need us, come back. But so
Mhm.
literally, I was like signed off from the hospital, and I didn't really see the stomach care nurses in my local area regularly. And at the time, I didn't really think about it because I thought, oh no, I'm fine, and I can get back in touch with them, and it's fine all the time you're well. But it was really hard to get back into them once things weren't quite right.
Right.
But not only that, I do actually look back on it and think, actually, I probably did need to see someone more regularly, because really, you need to just check that things aren't going in the wrong direction, don't you? Because I probably wouldn't have known, because you don't, because you just manage, I suppose. Well, I have done anyway. But in turn, there's not there at the time. I don't think I don't know. I can't remember, but I remember coming to these sort of platforms quite late, thinking, wow, you get your belly out and all of those ones, and I was thinking, wow, it's amazing that you can. There's so many people out there and all their different stories, and God, it's just amazing to sort of be able to do that. But in terms of connecting otherwise, it's not something I'd ever really done. I'd met a few people through my life with stomas, but and again, everyone's story is different and the way they deal
Mhm.
with it is different. But I just, my close friends all knew, but I the issue is no one can really be in your shoes, can they? That's the thing. And that's the frustration, because I think people generally don't really understand, I suppose. But why would they? It's no judgment on any of it, but it's just an interesting thought. And also, trying to get stuff like nice underwear or all of those things,
Yeah.
it's been something that's not really happened, has it, till sort of, I would say, the past few years, really. Anything that, looks nice or you feel comfortable with, or, supported stuff, it's just not readily available either. And I sort of realised that when, all this started happening, and they thought I had a hernia, and it was really uncomfortable. And I felt like there was huge dragging and, pressure on my
Yeah.
tummy every time it worked, and I needed like a lot more support. So, everything that you're signposted to is it's all really, really expensive, isn't it? comparatively, I would say, to other support underwear. And actually, you can get support underwear, obviously, shapewear and all the rest of it, but it's not quite the same because it's so tight. Whereas this is like made of stuff that supports you without, if it's too tight, you just end up with an explosion anyway, don't you?
Yeah.
I think that, and that's it. I think there's a long way to go with it, just for people to feel comfortable being open, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Having conversations like this definitely helps
I know, true
people.
enough. It really does. Yeah. Needs to try and create more opportunities. Which I do. I'm much more open now with people because I just think at one point I was just thinking, oh, I've got to own it. I mean, in terms of my work, I can remember when it was so impacting on me before I had my surgery, and my boss was amazing. She just said, do you think you need to tell your team, you need to be really open with them and tell them how difficult this is for you? And I said, well, no. I didn't say no. I said, I understand what you mean. And she said, I'm happy to speak to them. And I said, well, I need to own it. It's not really about that. But it was so hard.
Yeah.
I just felt I don't think I can speak to them, because every time I had to speak, I just became so emotional because I needed an end to it.
I think it's really difficult to speak about something you're right in the middle of the
Yeah,
trauma.
exactly. I was sort of in the eye of that storm, and it was too difficult to sort of put it into words.
Yeah.
But yeah. And now it seems much easier. But to put yourself back in that space is not easy.
No, of course. Thank you for speaking about it so openly today and for sharing your experience. I know it's not easy, even now you're out of it, to go back to that place and talk about it. And it must have been a really, really difficult couple of years leading up to this operation.
Oh yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely right. But yeah, I can move now. I can move on. Hopefully, yeah, I'm sort of the other side of it. Yeah, absolutely right. But yeah, I think it's important to keep talking. Yeah.
I agree.
Mm.
One last question, if I may, and then I promise I will let you go.
Good.
But we ask this to everybody who comes on, which is, what would you say to somebody who has stoma surgery coming up? What maybe should they expect, or should they specifically be aware of?
Yeah, good question. Actually, yeah, you just reminded me. Funnily enough, the first time I had it done, there was a much younger girl. She was 18, who had exactly the same thing as me. She was about 3 weeks ahead of me, and it was so helpful to just sort of be able to talk to her.
Mm.
But I think for me, one of the most important things was to have trust in your team. I mean, the first surgery, I didn't get better until I had a team I really trusted.
Yeah.
And this time again, I really, although it wasn't the same, I just thought I felt completely calm, and I knew, and honestly, they did an amazing job. So there's no worries there. But, it will, everything will be so much better. It really will. And it's not really what anyone really wants to happen to them, I'm sure. But it will. And I suppose, you have to believe that it's going to be better. And actually, it's not so bad. I mean, everyone, you want to look a certain way, don't you? But, there's ways around everything. And it's not, I think there's probably nothing that you're not going to be able to do that you really want to. But yeah. But, give yourself time, really.
I think that's really wise. Give yourself time. Sarah, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing.
That's
Really, really
okay.
appreciate it.
But
And I
yeah,
know
no, it's good. I think it's a helpful thing to do in actual fact. But yeah, no, it's been really, really good to talk, and yeah, I think it's brilliant that we've got the opportunity to be able to do this at this point.
And thank you for talking about some subjects that I genuinely have never heard covered before. I know this will be so, so helpful for people.
Oh, I hope so. But again, isn't it? Everyone's going to have a different perspective. So yeah, it is. Yeah, there's always someone out there who's had an experience, isn't there? That's going to be helpful. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Yeah. Good to meet you.
Thank you, Sarah. You too. Speak soon. Have you seen the new Ostique skins yet? Ostique Skins are revolutionary ostomy pouch covers that were created to make the wearer feel confident, sexy and powerful in all of life's moments. From moments of intimacy to lounging by the pool, conquering a workout or simply heading out to lunch, Skins have you covered. Even better, they're compatible with all major colostomy and ileostomy bags. Ostique Skins are available in a range of colours and skin tones, and they're made from a revolutionary material that's completely waterproof, high quality, soft and comfortable. Skins are easy to use, even with reduced dexterity, and they work with both closed and drainable bags. Plus, Skins are also environmentally friendly and vegan. There are 4 bundles available to buy now, and you can also purchase individual skins. Head to ostique.co.uk to find out more.